I don't think that we have any algorithms or machines that are self-conscious and can think in the same way that humans do. And I think you hit on a key aspect of it. And let's take a brief detour into the famous Turing test. But what's interesting about the Turing test is it's about fooling you, right? So the Turing test it's about, can you create this is my translation of it, and this will probably cause a lot of arguments, and we can get into the arguments, but it's really about, can you create a convincing simulation? But in my view, a convincing simulation doesn't mean that the underlying thing is the same. Also, I think you hit on a very key point, which is that, the AI systems that we have now, I mean, one, they're just statistical engines. So they're basically very big, very complicated nonlinear distance functions with different kinds of architectural layers in them that create convincing dialogue outputs in particular. So certainly they passed the original Turing test, but I don't see any evidence that they have feelings, right? And of course, this goes back to a philosophical point. There's a huge tradition in the West of what I would call rationality bias, going back to the ancient Greeks. So we like to talk about, it's like, what's special about humans? Humans are rational. I don't really agree with that as stated. I think I've met humans, as I like to say, and they're not rational. They're capable. They're not, right? I mean, they're capable of rationality. So, what exists in a human, and I think this is sort of interesting for the whole leadership conversation, it's a mixture of humanness, or what you were saying, our flawed nature, our emotions, and the ability to be rational. The ability to be rational, which is different than, quote, being rational. And I don't see any evidence so far that any system is exhibiting those traits. And again, if you ask the question in a different way, it's like you talk to Claude or you talk to ChatGPT, like, does it care about the conversation? Like, if you phrase the question that way, I think most people will be like, no, it doesn't care. But yeah, if you ask if it's intelligent, generally people answer that they think that it is intelligent. And so I think that, to me, our the beauty of being human, exactly as you said, is in part in our imperfect nature, and in this, this interesting mix of emotion and rationality, and our relationship to other humans who are the same as us. There's maybe one more observation I'd offer on this, and this is, I'm still thinking about this, and perhaps the audience can look forward to my publishing something on this at some point. If we were to say that, the Turing test is a good test in terms of output, right? So it's measuring the ability to simulate. But if we don't think that that's satisfactory in terms of whether, quote, something is really intelligent, I don't rule out that it's possible. I don't claim it's impossible. I claim that, we're in my view, there's no evidence that we're there yet. If we get there, I think it'll be very difficult to tell. Right. It's going to be kind of a deep mystery, because of course, like, what what you're judging on is also the outputs, right? So when people respond to this and they're like, the Turing test is not a bad test, it's totally aligned with cognitive neuroscience, and like, there are lots of things, and I do understand that argument. I think it'll be very, very difficult to tell. And kind of how I think about this is, there's a thing in philosophy and cognitive neuroscience called the hard problem of consciousness, which is sort of explaining consciousness itself in humans. In fact, no one's really been able to agree on this in several thousand years of our, best, wisest, smartest people thinking about it. I don't know if we think we should be able to agree on it with respect to machines. I think there's actually what I call the harder problem of consciousness, which is, if you have consciousness that's non-human. This could, by the way, also be animal consciousness, which is a very interesting field, or machine consciousness. Like, how do you know? If there's a hard problem just related to humans, I think when you get outside of humans, it's what I call the harder problem of consciousness. So even though my hypothesis, or my strong hypothesis, is that we don't have this now, and there's no evidence of it, if at one point it arrives, I think it's going to be very unclear how to decide if it's real or not.
Yeah.